with the rapid adoption of artificial intelligence, the need to build infrastructure with data centers around the world to power the speed at which we're seeing AI move. There are a couple solutions out there in the world that can help ensure we do this in a much more sustainable manner. Today, we're going to meet one of the entrepreneurs who is wielding one of those solutions. His name is Tim Hysell. He's been an Unreasonable Fellow since he joined us in a Reasonable Impact program in 2018. So we've been supporting Tim and his team at ZincFive now for nearly a decade. The company that they have is remarkable. They've deployed the world's first nickel-zinc rechargeable battery technology. It's uniquely fit for data centers and for AI infrastructure. It does not use any precious metals. It's 90% recyclable. It's rechargeable. Their aim is to ensure that nickel zinc becomes the fifth rechargeable battery to scale across the world. And before this, Tim's has a star-studded journey as a founder. He started companies in renewable energy and banking and manufacturing and medical devices. He is a true serial entrepreneur and investor and mentor and board member. And he's worked with some of the world's largest companies, and he's helping disrupt them in a way that is collaborative, that is relational, that is rooted in trust, but that takes us into a more sustainable future. Today's conversation, we're not just going to talk about the technology and its applications to the current moment in time with this AI boom, but we're also going to get to know Tim. I'm going to get to know Tim a little bit better, understand what ingredients have led him to not just the level of success that he has and is experiencing, but also, I would say, his ability to be grounded in joy throughout that journey. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I know I will. Tim, I'm deeply grateful that you've made the time for this conversation. It's been too long, and I am very keen and excited to dig in with you.
Absolutely. I can't wait to do the same with you. It's been a while.
It's been a long while. We just looked it up. You joined us first in the Unreasonable 2018. So we're nearing a decade on this journey. And of course, ZincFive goes far before that. So just wanted to say, grateful to be on the journey with you. But maybe, Tim, it'd be good to start with just the very basics, which is why ZincFive and what ZincFive is as a business.
Yeah. Wow. First of all, for those that might not know, is we're a battery technology company. So the type of chemistry that we have in our day-to-day products is a chemistry called nickel-zinc. So the reason I start there, Daniel, is because when we first discovered nickel-zinc, we were looking to solve a problem. We didn't own the chemistry at the time, but we were looking to solve a problem. And the problem was we were engaged in the business of stoplights, providing all the electronics for stoplights. And
thanks for doing that.
Yeah, right? Because it's a problem. And here lies the problem, Daniel, is when utility power goes out at those stoplights, they go black. They don't flash red like a lot of people think. So there's unfortunate casualties on a daily basis for intersections that don't have battery backup. So we decided to come at that industry with a revolutionary nickel-zinc technology. Why? Because it was so much better than what was used currently, which was lead acid batteries. So long story short, we did that and we commercialized that first product in 2012. I remember personally driving that first product. It was like a diamond. I remember driving it along with my co-founder to Sacramento, California from Portland, Oregon. And it was we were petrified that it would get lost in shipping or something.
How big was this diamond?
It's actually quite small. It looks almost like a solar panel, about big, about 3 feet long. And then there's a controller that is called an inverter. And that's really it. So it wasn't fit in the trunk. It wasn't like, we needed to pull a trailer behind us, which is part of the advantages of the nickel-zinc solution. It's its footprint. It's quite small. Anyway, long story short is we did that in 2012. And all of a sudden we realized what we had created had just huge implications in the data center industry. Why?
Massive applications.
Massive. And the reason is what was at that time little known about nickel-zinc chemistry is it's incredibly good at short duration, not long duration applications, right?
That's right.
So when you think about industries that need long duration, it's like your EV, electric vehicle.
Yep.
You want those things to go hundreds and hundreds of miles or kilometers. Well, that's not ZincFive and Nickel-zinc. We're like the sprinter. We're not the marathon runner. So think of use cases that need that. Well, in data centers, guess what? They need battery backup when power goes out for 3 to 5 minutes, not hours, because they're just giving the generators time to fire up. So anyway, that's where this kind of began, and that's where we are today. But now look what's happened. Artificial intelligence, right? What's the problem with artificial intelligence? A lot of things, but there's a lot of good things. But the problem is the scalability of artificial intelligence. And guess what? The limiting factor is power. They need the power when it's computing exceeds the grid capacity by 20 to 50%. But guess what, Daniel? It happens in milliseconds. Guess what we're exceptional at?
Yeah, milliseconds
Milliseconds.
power.
Yeah. So anyway, long story where it began and where we are. You didn't quite ask that question, but it just gets exciting to talk about not only where we've come from, but where we are today.
Can you explain a little bit, just for my benefit as well, just nickel zinc
Yes.
versus lithium ion versus the other rechargeable battery solutions that are out there, and what are the benefits, and why is you said it's better at that sprint
Yes.
than the marathon, but maybe explain a little bit how that works.
So lithium is exceptional at the marathon, right? And the marathon being, call it 2 to 6 hours, or in cases of EVs, hundreds of miles. When you try to put lithium into the data center space to do 3 to 5 minutes, or, artificial intelligence milliseconds, they have to oversize everything compared to ZincFive. Why? It's to compete with the discharge rates. They don't discharge that fast. And so
That's the thing that matters in the data center.
And so not only are we smaller, but then there's other facets that matter to the data centers. Guess what? Safety.
Yeah, of course.
Our batteries
Fires.
have no risk of fire, thermal runaway, or explosion.
Zero risk.
Zero. The batteries have
that's incredible.
The batteries have been tested by UL. It's called a test called UL 9540A. And the sole purpose, Daniel, is to see if they can force the batteries into fire, thermal runaway, or explosion. Guess what? They couldn't do that with our nickel-zinc batteries. So you couple the footprint with the safety, and then guess what? We have an amazing sustainability story, which was part of the reason back in 2018 we connected, because the sustainability side of our story. Well, our batteries are over 90% recyclable. That's 90%. Huge.
That's incredible.
That's huge.
Yeah.
So anyway, those three cornerstones, if you will, are what's so different about nickel zinc and ZincFive compared to lithium, and compared to, say, lead acid, which has been used historically in data centers. It's becoming harder now because they really don't have power density like we do.
And in terms of nickel zinc and these conversations around precious metals,
yes,
how does that compare to lithium ion?
Yeah. So another good example is that, our three major constituents in our batteries is something that's quite simple. It's nickel, or byproducts of nickel. It's copper, and it's zinc. That's how simple it is. And that's also what makes it so safe, right? There isn't anything volatile in the chemistry like that. So yeah, readily available resources.
Okay. And I'm curious, where are you in the journey of a company? Because I imagine this has exploded in the last few years with the advent of AI.
It really has. The world is still trying, even the largest players in the data center industry, that what's called hyperscalers, and those likes of Amazon, Google, Microsoft, you can name them all. They're all trying to figure out how to solve this AI problem with power, right? It's really in real time right now. So back to where are we? We've now deployed nearly 2 gigawatts of our battery backup cabinets, and or have under contract of our battery backup cabinets for data centers globally. That's a big number, right?
Yeah. Put that number in perspective for someone who doesn't understand gigawatts.
Yeah. So a lot of people talk about a megawatt, right? Well, think of that times multiples of significantly more, okay, a gigawatt. So what that means to you is, a lot of times when you hear people talk about standing up a lithium factory, they talk about it being a gigawatt factory, single gigawatt. Well, we've deployed 2 gigawatts and or have under contract. And that's just where we are today. So when you look at where we are today, we did roughly, I'll call it 30 million in revenue in 2024. We're going to double that in 25. And
Amazing.
our backlog of orders to deliver in 2026 is already an impressive number, right?
Yeah.
Guess what, Daniel? That has nothing to do with AI yet.
Yeah. Yeah, totally right.
That's all battery backup. So we launched our first product. This is public information. We launched our first product in Q4 that, guess what, is a battery backup cabinet that can also handle the AI pulsing. We believe there's no other chemistry in the world that can do that. Why? Because back to that power density, you also have to have something that couples it called energy density. I won't bore you with that today, but it just means that you have to have both. And in our nickel-zinc chemistry just happens to be, we were a chemistry that was waiting for a problem, right?
Yes.
And all of a sudden the problem shows up with AI that's even bigger than backing up data centers. So yeah, it's wild.
I know this might be getting technical, but I want to understand it. When you talk about AI data centers needing significant discharges of energy in milliseconds,
Yes.
why is that? And what is the dynamic there that needs that?
So traditional data centers operate off chips called CPUs, right?
Yep.
And so they basically just kind of run at this constant power need, right? Well, when you start to incorporate GPUs, which are the chips for AI, what happens is they operate in clusters, right? And so all of these GPU chips basically sync up if you were to say, what's the temperature going to be like in Colorado today, right? Just something simple like that. Well, that's GPUs in a cluster coming together and giving your answer in these 50 millisecond bursts of power.
Got it.
Right? And we're just at the beginning of AI. I mean, we haven't even got to the big stuff, which is coming. If you look at the power needed with the futures of the GPU chips, it's not this, flatline. It is a huge spike up.
It's truly exponential.
It's only going to get more challenging, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's how GPUs work differently than a regular data center, which is why we're so excited about our technology, because we can even help an existing data center that has, just traditional power. And all of a sudden they have customers coming in that are AI customers, right? Because that's how some data centers work. And we can help solve that without building out an entire new infrastructure.
That's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
And how big is this, let's call it problem or challenge of the energy needs of data centers and AI? I mean, what proportion of energy is either predicted or is currently used by this infrastructure?
Yeah, we've done an assessment and it's been vetted by a number of world-class bankers, including Barclays has looked at the data as well.
Yep.
And it looks to be about a $90 billion a year total addressable market. 90. That was with a B, by the way.
Yeah.
And we get excited because we're smack dab in the middle of that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And with unique technology.
Very.
Yeah. Let me just say one thing to you. You asked about lithium earlier when we were talking about battery backup.
Yeah.
Here's what's different, and you can see this. It's in the public information, but for lithium to try to solve for the AI pulsing, they have to combine their technology with supercaps.
Yep.
So it's two technologies having to work together. We're the only technology that we're aware of that can do this on our own.
Yeah. It also seems like chemistry you're using is much simpler, and therefore I'm guessing the cost differential is also kinder to the end customer. I mean, what's the cost difference?
Yeah. So in the world of battery backup for data centers, when we're competing against lithium or lead acid, our total cost of ownership is lower than those. Why? Because one, we don't have the footprint requirements that they have. Footprint's very expensive, right?
Yeah.
Number two, because of the safety side of it, we don't need the fire suppression that you need to have. And now there's regulatory things with the national fire codes that also, prevent lithium being used at certain locations and too close to it. We don't have any of that, right?
Yep.
So you look at that, but then the other thing that's fascinating is more and more of these data centers, Daniel, are now being built in these containerized solutions, right, offsite, and then they just drop them into data centers. Well, when they build those containerized solutions, guess what? Our footprint's so small, no fire suppression, all of those things turn into dollars, right?
Yes.
So it's for all those reasons that cost wise, we're in really good shape. And then when you get into the demand for AI and we're a single solution, you can only imagine how much more cost effective we will be versus any other solutions out there to solve this.
Yeah. And then I feel like there's so many applications, but if nickel zinc batteries are much better at discharging, a significant amount of energy in a short period of time, and they have no fire risk, and it's better for the planet on multiple levels.
Yes.
Wouldn't this be useful for charging electric vehicles? And is that an application you're using it for?
Yeah, it could be. We haven't gone after that industry, but there's a tremendous amount of energy applications out there that we just haven't had time to get to, frankly. And
Totally.
based on where we're taking the company, that's one of the reasons we want to have a larger balance sheet, is to do some of these other applications, because it does take capital, and it takes partnerships too. But yeah, one I can just give you a quick example of that we're not pursuing at the moment is there's so many use cases where generators run all day long for, like, mining is an example, right?
Yep.
They run all day long and they're really only needed for like these 15-minute bursts, but they run them all day long because they don't have, when they need them, they can't wait 50, minutes for them to fire up.
It needs to start up right away.
Right. So imagine this: you're using our nickel-zinc batteries for those short duration needs that you have. The generators just stay turned off. And if you need something longer term than, say, 15 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever the case might be, then fire up the generators. You still have time. That's essentially what data centers do, right? But imagine the fuel, the cost savings. Imagine the carbon footprint savings. I mean, just maintenance. It's ridiculous. But those are just examples. There's industrial applications, industries that are a manufacturer, and they have these motors that start up to run these runs for production, and they have to stagger the startup because the utility, the grid doesn't have the capacity for everything to fire up at one time, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's just another short duration power need.
Okay, last question I'm going to have on the science.
Yeah.
Nickel and copper, I understand, are just incredibly abundant.
That's right.
I am certainly not, precious metals in any sense. Much easier to access, much less degradation of the environment to pull it from the ground. But zinc, I am less familiar with. What is zinc? Is it everywhere, and how?
Yeah, it's everywhere. It's in medicine. It's in nasal sprays. I mean, it's everywhere, and it's just abundant. So that's what gets us exciting. And then, as you heard me talk about our batteries being over 90% recyclable, what's cool about that is we can do it smelter free. We don't need these big smeltering plants. We do it with a chemical process. So we can literally do it inside of one of our manufacturing facilities, and it's amazing.
You can upcycle the batteries.
Yeah.
So everything about this seems better. For the use case.
Yes,
to your point, short duration. Yeah. So now let's go a little bit of the journey, because you've been doing this for a long time. You said you first kind of found an application in these traffic lights in 2012. So well over a decade.
That's right.
I know you're backwards as a serial entrepreneur. I know you've founded banks. You've done a lot of different companies. What pulled you into this space of working on battery chemistry?
It almost happened by accident, like a lot of amazing things do. You're right. I'm an entrepreneur. I always started things and sold things and so on and so forth. But I had built a very large distribution company in the medical ultrasound business with the likes of Siemens and HP and others. And one day, my wife thought I was crazy. I said, I want to go own my own manufacturing company. So
you just wanted to. You just had a desire to manufacture something.
Yeah. Well, a lot of companies, when you're a sales channel for them and you have great success, they don't like to see you have that much success.
Interesting.
And so I said, we've had great success, and I'm tired of building things and then have people put a roof on you, right? And so that's what motivated me to buy my own manufacturing company because I knew we would also use alternate sales channels, and I knew how to take care of them, right?
Yep.
Let them grow, let them be as successful as you are, right? And so anyway, it just happened to be an electronics company for stoplights that was close to where I live in the Portland area.
Yep.
And it was down in Salem, the state capital, and I bought it. And I knew nothing about electronics and stoplights and everything else. Well,
You just wanted to manufacture
I
something.
just wanted to manufacture something, and I chose that one because a little bit like healthcare,
Yeah.
there was only like 6 companies in the world that made what they needed at the stoplights that they made. So it's supply and demand, right? And it's not going to go away. A stoplight's not going to go away.
That's right.
I purchased it because I saw all the potential innovation that could benefit in that space. Well, I was very disappointed because I got in there and it's very stodgy.
Yeah.
Everybody's resistant to change, right? And so here,
Yeah, especially with traffic lights,
yeah,
because if they don't work,
yeah.
it's catastrophic. And so it's like, yeah,
And the biggest change is when they went to LED stoplights, and
yeah,
that's probably the biggest technological change. So anyway, to answer your question, one of my really bright engineers came to me one day and said, "Tim, we should build a battery backup for the stoplights because they use lead acid and they hate them, right? They don't work." And so anyway, I said, "Tell you what, I'll give you all as a group of engineers 90 days. You go find me because I don't want to use lead acid, right?"
yeah.
And I said, "Go find me a chemistry that can work for this." Lo and behold, they found nickel-zinc through a company called Powergenics. And the rest is kind of history through 2012. And then I think what's cool about the story, Daniel, is in 2016, we merged my company and Powergenics together. So we sit here today with all the IP globally. I mean, nobody in the world has any IP portfolio even close to ZincFive
Yeah.
around nickel-zinc and the solutions we make. So
You have over 90 patents?
we have over 80 globally, and
80. Okay.
we've
That's
already
pretty good.
applied for a number for AI.
Sure. Okay. That is fascinating. That in essence, the trajectory of the company was born out of a really smart engineer coming to you saying, this is a problem, and you saying, great, I'm going to give you 90 days to go after it. I don't feel like that's common either for a CEO necessarily to say, hey team,
Yeah.
you got 90 days, go dream, go try to figure out how we can solve this. Where does that leadership style in you come from?
I think it's a collection. Well, no, number one, it's a competitive spirit. I'll start there. Number two, it's a collection of all my time of having some amazing mentors throughout my career and how to lead people, right?
Mm,
And if you give people the freedom and the autonomy to do things, it's amazing what they're capable of, right?
mm,
If you tell them all the time all the reasons you can't do something, that's stifling. And so I look back at some of the greatest mentors I've had in my career. I've taken a little bit from each one of them. I've never taken everything from anybody because we all have our own flaws, right?
yes.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it really has started, over the years there. I mean, my first one was in healthcare at the hospital I first got my job at. Next was at HP, and I can just keep going and going all the way through time at GE, etc. And then when it came time to start a bank, it was like, okay, that doesn't scare me.
Mm,
You're going to be working with a lot of really smart people. It's really being blessed with having a lot of really super people and good people, by the way. That's the other key. Surround yourself with good people, not just smart people.
amen. I'm going to ask you so many questions, but first I want to understand where older Tim comes from. And what I mean is, it's not common for somebody to say, it was time to start a bank, so I did,
Yeah.
and I wasn't scared, or to say, hey, I really want to start a manufacturing company. I'm just going to go buy one of these companies
Yeah.
and dig into it. It seems like there's something about you that seems like it's given you permission throughout life to go after these dreams. And I'm curious, just like, what was your childhood like that informed who you've become?
People don't ask me that very often. A lot of people kind of think you come from a silver spoon kind of a background,
I
right?
don't imagine that.
Yeah, and that's completely opposite for me. I grew up in a family where we had to use food stamps, right?
Yeah.
And I grew up where from the time I was 5, I was out working with my mom in the farm fields, right?
Was
Everything.
this in Oregon? Where were
This was
you?
in Washington. Yeah.
Washington.
But
Okay.
everything
Yeah.
from, picking grapes as a kid to picking cherries to working for farmers when I was in high school and playing sports.
That's right.
And then, sports gives you that whole next layer of maturity about
Mhm.
competition, right? And so I always told my mom, I always said, I don't have to be rich, but I just don't want to be poor.
Mm,
And I never put where is the finish line for me? It's just never been that. And also, once you start a family, I know you have a family coming. It takes you to the next chapter of your life about now I got to work hard for my family, my own
mhm.
right? And now I have a grandbaby and another one coming, and now I want to work hard for my grandkids, right?
Yeah.
So it's just these chapters of life that you know forge who you become.
Amen. When you look back, growing up on food stamps and working in the fields when you're 5 years old because you have to.
Yeah, you have
It
to.
sounds like there's not an option. How does it feel like that shaped you? Like if you go back to that, is that well? Actually, I won't make any assumptions. I'm curious.
Well, number one, because my mom was working side by side with me when I was 5, and as long as until I got my first job with a real farmer, and he had me do things on my own and with my high school buddies and stuff. But it's amazing. I look at kids today that not all, but a lot of kids at 5 years old and call it 5 to 10. They're behind a computer playing games and all those sorts of things, right?
Totally.
From the time I was 5 to the time I was 10, I spent out in the fields, especially in the summer, working on a farm with my mom, 10 feet away from me, having conversations 8 hours a day,
How cool is that?
right?
Wow.
And so, people that forge you are people like that, right? You saw her work ethic. You saw she never complained. She just did what she had to do, right?
Yeah.
And so it's those things. And I look at, and this is one of the things when we raised our 2 sons, is I took that in the way I raised them, or my wife and I raised them,
Hmm.
because we wanted them to be able to turn to us and have an adult conversation throughout their whole life. Well,
Mm.
that's what my mom gave me without ever knowing it,
Yeah.
right? Is that comfort with, from the time I was 5 to 10 and beyond, the comfort of having an adult conversation with anybody, right?
Hmm.
You know, I always give her credit for being the biggest support.
Yeah. I can't imagine how that would shape you. Was it her or was it something else that installed this like belief of possibility in you? Do you know where that comes from?
This is going to sound really weird.
Let's go there, Tim. Weird is good.
It was my dad that, in a very negative way,
Mm,
made me be who I am today, too. And I'll explain.
yeah.
He taught me all the things I didn't want to be.
Wow.
Yeah. Right. And unfortunately, you have to experience that in life, too. Right. Especially when it's your father. But he taught me all the things I didn't want to become. I didn't
Hmm.
want to treat people like. I didn't, I could do the I didn'ts for an hour. I basically had 2 parents that one was a saint and the other one is just every day. And I bring him up only because he always told you all the things you weren't any good at.
Wow. So he put a ceiling on you
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah. I was very
Oh,
successful in football, in sports, right? And he would listen to my games on the radios, or my basketball game or my football game on the radio, and there would be newspaper clippings the next day, and everything would be, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you didn't, so
mhm.
it was always what it did, Daniel, is it did create that inherent drive in you
Totally.
to always be overachieving.
Hmm.
And then one day you realize it doesn't matter anymore. I'm just going to work hard for myself and my family.
Totally.
Yeah, but it's what shaped you.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't know you were such an athlete. To,
I
I
mean, I look like it now.
no, I still see it. kind of got the gladiator build. It's good. It's good. You mentioned it briefly in terms of the competitive spirit of sports.
Yes.
Therefore, you do like to win, which I internalize as you like to be the best
Yeah.
at what you're doing. You get joy in that.
Yes.
What else do you feel like sports taught you?
I never played individual sports.
Always team.
It was always team sports. And I always wanted my kids to play team sports, which they did. And I'm always going to encourage my grandkids to play team sports. And you can play an individual sport. You go be the best golfer you want to be.
Totally.
There's just a difference in an individual sport and a team sport.
Very much so.
You're right. And so I was always just driven by that camaraderie and that for the same purpose, for the same goal, for the same championship, for the same everything. And if you look at a good CEO, they have to build a culture, right?
Yeah.
That's hard to do that if you've only been an individual player, right? Think about
Totally
that.
right.
And so they're a good driver, they're a good competitor, but they have trouble, uniting people generally.
Yeah, no, I love that. I also know you were a coach. I have been a coach.
Yes.
I'm assuming for your kids and their teams, or when did that come into play?
Yeah, I coached youth sports from the time my boys were, I don't know, 6, 7 years old, whenever it starts at, till the time they entered high school. Yeah, which is also that bonding experience with your kids, right? I mean, but that was one of the joys of my life too, because there's so many men now that are married and having their own kids that see me all the time and still call me coach. And
Coach Hysell.
yeah,
very good.
Yeah, that's crazy. But no, I enjoyed that. It was a great, it came and went. Now when you look back on it so fast, Daniel, and that's why.
That's right.
You and your new baby coming is, enjoy every minute.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah.
One thing you talked about culture, and it's something one of our mentors within the Unreasonable community, Kamran Alahian, who had founded and was running multiple billion-dollar companies. I remember sitting with him, it was probably 2011. I was interviewing him, and at the time, he was running 2 multi-billion-dollar companies at the same time. Chair or CEO, but like fully involved. And at that time, I think we had a team of like 6.
Yeah.
He had 2 teams of thousands.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting with him, just being like, "Comrade, how is this possible? Like a team of 6, I'm exhausted. How do you have 2 teams with thousands of employees across them?" And what he said really resonated, which is aligned with what you're sharing, which is, he said, look, most entrepreneurs, if we use football, American football as the analogy, they want to be the quarterback of the football team that wins the Super Bowl. And as the quarterback, nothing happens unless you snap the ball, you call every play, you get all the glory and you get all of the failure.
Yeah.
If it doesn't happen. But the real truth is, if you want to create a company that is multiple billions of dollars or impacts a billion lives, whichever bar it is you're reaching for, like the avenue towards that is not to become the quarterback of the team that wins the Super Bowl, it's to be the coach.
That's right.
And the job of a great coach is kind of what you were saying, which is get the best players, I would say with the best hearts, into the positions that you can afford.
Yep.
and then create the culture, right? Because I've always felt like you were a coach. And so I want to know, what have you learned from coaching that's informed how you've been a CEO?
Yeah. When you start off, like I founded a bunch of companies, at that point, you're not really the founder. You are the CEO because you're building something, right?
Yeah.
And both titles are kind of merged, but you got to go build this thing. And that's the CEO role. And so the first thing you realize is you've got to, it's just like you gave a good analogy, like a U.S. football team.
Mm-hmm.
It's you now have to go build an organization that can take you to the next level. Like when we first met each other back in 2018, I think maybe we had, 50 employees.
It was about 50.
We're now over 350.
Yeah.
And so, but back to the analogy of the football team is that you've got to go hire an amazing COO and trust that he or she is going to help you build out the rest of this team. Now, I view when you're an early stage company, if you use that analogy of football again, I view the CEO as the coach and the COO is your quarterback, right?
Yeah.
But as you grow, then the COO becomes the CEO, and he's the quarterback, and the founder is the coach.
Yeah, totally right.
So it sort of evolves as you grow, is how I view it. But I think, and I give you guys credit for this, and I'm not, you know me, I'm not a BSer. Is I give Unreasonable all the credit in the world, and Barclays for that matter.
Yeah.
All the credit in the world for helping me wake up one day and say, you got to go build a better culture. Right. And I remember it was back in 2018. I don't know if you ever remember, but you actually led the session on culture. And you talked about how Unreasonable had created this culture. I came back home and I got together with my director of human resources and said, you think we have a good culture? She goes, we have an amazing culture. And I said, I would argue we have a shitty one, right?
Oh, no, you did not.
Yeah. And I said, because we have a good one on the surface, and everybody has, that thinks they have a good culture. If you look, the majority of them have a good culture on the surface, but it's got to permeate your whole organization. And that's what I learned that day, right? And so I came back and we put like 10 or 15 things in place that not just talked about our culture, but our employees could point to and say, this is why I love this company, right?
Yeah.
Culture is a big, big thing. If you talk to anybody at ZincFive, they'll say the reason they love working at ZincFive isn't our technology, it's our culture.
Yeah.
And that means a lot.
That's a big deal. Yeah. And it's rare.
Yeah.
It seems to me like a big part of you knew this early on from the story you shared of saying, hey, I believe you. There's a bigger problem out there for us to solve. You got 90 days, go get it.
Yeah.
And then, look where we are today. Like that takes a certain level of, I don't know if these are the right words. You tell me what's right, but trust or faith to say, yeah, go for it. I don't need to be myopically involved in every single little thing. You're here for a reason. Like, do you know where that comes from for you?
I would say it's just an inherent thing that probably my mom taught me, or she just bestowed upon me, is treat people the way you want to be treated. And then if you do, that inherently provides trust.
Yeah. Well,
right. Until somebody does something that abuses that. Right. And then you pivot. You say, okay, well, that's not the right person to be around us. Right. But start off with trust. Ronald Reagan with Putin, trust and verify. I forget how that saying goes.
Yep.
But I always say trust and then prove me wrong. Right. Because if you prove me wrong, we're done. Right.
Yeah.
I don't give you a second chance on trust. I'll give you a second chance on a lot of things. Make it just a natural mistake. That's okay.
Certainly on performance, but trust is the difference.
Yeah. But if you violate the trust or the values, that's sort of the line we can't come back from. Yeah.
Well, so what are the values that are guiding you today?
I won't go through all of them, but I will tell you this. When I first was introduced to Unreasonable, you guys obviously saw big world effing problems, right? That's what your mantra is. I don't know if it still is, but
yeah, it was. BFD's big funky problems. Yeah. Yeah. We don't use it anymore. Party wants to.
Well, if my human resource director was on the line, she would say, please keep using it. She loves it. But the one she loves the most, and she has me say this to all the new hires when I was at the CEO level through September, is every time we hired 10 new employees, my COO and my CFO and myself, we would have a 2-hour session with these new hires, virtual, and all we would talk about is nothing associated with ZincFive. Right.
Incredible.
And everybody got to know us as human beings. We get to know them, and there's a bunch of fun stuff. But she invariably has me say every time what my number one value is. You'll appreciate it. It's the no asshole rule. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we do these, I'm videotaped for new hires to look at, and of course I say it passionately, but I also tell them why. Right. And the why is really important. The why, and it comes back to the 90-day thing, go see what you can do, right? Is they felt empowered because of the culture we had back then to go find something, right? And the problem and I tell people this all the time, the problem with letting assholes exist in your organization, and you see it all the time, you have a strategic meeting or you have a technology planning meeting, And that person always wants to be the smartest person in the room.
Yep.
They basically stifle everybody else. In fact, you give them enough time in your organization, all of those really creative people are just going to stop trying, right?
Yeah.
So you got to cut that out of your organization quick. Don't get me wrong. You can have healthy debates, but do it respectfully,
Of course.
because your position is not always the right position, and your position could be the wrong one in a week from now.
Yep.
So just give people the respect of being able to imagine, explore, be creative. And then, and if we make a mistake, we'll pivot.
Yeah, I love that. It reminds me of a conversation I had with a really good friend in university where we were doing an experiment. We're like, we're just going to be 100% honest for 30
interesting.
days. If you bumped into someone at like a reception and they were, talking about whatever it was, and you weren't interested, instead of saying, hey, I need to go use the restroom, you would say, hey, I hope this isn't offensive, but I'm not interested in this conversation. I actually really like to hang out with my friend Tim, but I want to wish you a good night. Whatever it was, it's hard to do. At the end of it, I was talking with my friend and I was like, how do you balance empathy with brutal honesty? And because I felt like it was tough to be brutally honest, and he paused for like 30 seconds and with a lot of wisdom in hindsight, he said, well, what about empathetic honesty? Like, why did you separate those two things? And so it's a beautiful reminder. You want truthfulness, you want authenticity, you want debate, and you can do it with kindness and with empathy.
You really can. There's just subtle words you can use in any conversation that keeps it from being this, turned into a confrontation. Now you're going to have confrontations with certain people because they just have a short fuse. But
of course,
if you're just a little bit more thoughtful, and we all move so fast, right? I mean, it's just our culture nowadays, our human culture.
Yeah.
But if you just take a minute to think about the other person for a second before you say what you might want to say, I think the world does way too much of that today. They're not really thoughtful about, being civil.
Yes, very true. It's funny. We changed that, the rule, no assholes rule. We still refer to it, but what we talk about is, instead of saying no assholes, which felt like we were like cutting people out, we said, don't be an asshole. And because the interesting thing is we're all capable of it.
Yeah.
we're like, and so that, to have a culture that brings out, the angels within us instead of the demons in that sense. But it was to acknowledge, like, yeah, that it's in all of us, but we want to create a culture that stirs up the goodwill.
Yeah. I like that. That's good. I might steal that from you.
Take it, run with it, wherever you want to go. Now, okay, part of our work at Unreasonable, it is absolutely find, the top science-based solutions on Earth that can pull us into a more regenerative world. So that can pull a brighter future into the present. So everything you all are doing at ZincFive is a perfect embodiment of that. But the other side of our work is to influence the world's largest multinationals and global institutions towards, transitioning to doing business in a way that, is aligned. One of our partners, Mars, they have a belief. They say the future we want starts with how we do business today.
100%.
And so, how do we help these multinationals catch up to the rhetoric that they're projecting into the future today? And of course, you came through a reasonable impact, which we created with Barclays. And I just wanted to hear, like, authentically how it has been as a, relatively then scrappy startup to, work with a 330-year-old global financial institution. And has it been helpful? Has it been influential? I would love to dig in.
I've said forever that, to such a degree that I can't measure, I'm just grateful for it, is when we came in contact with Unreasonable, that took us to another level. And it took us to another level because it involved Barclays, right?
Yeah.
A global bank. They have the same mission, passion as we all three did have.
Yeah.
Unreasonable, ZincFive, and Barclays. And it just provided such an opportunity for ZincFive to be put into meetings or being asked to be part of sitting down at a table to talk about ZincFive and what the world was needing and where the future was going, all these sorts of things. And that wouldn't have happened without Unreasonable. I believe that, because I wouldn't have had the resources to go find that. And then the Barclays relationship has just continued sincerely. This is not, I'm very, very sincere. is the relationship with Barclays has just become broader, deeper. And even one of the gentlemen at Barclays that was part of the Unreasonable relationship was a gentleman named Stephen Birkenfeld, led the whole organization there. Well, when he retired, I invited him to be on my advisory board, and he graciously accepted. And then back in September of this year, we restructured our board, and guess who's on my board now? Stephen Birkenfeld.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't give a better example of how you build these relationships and how important they are and how it helps shape you into the future than probably that. I mean, it's and the people I work with on a daily basis, almost on a daily basis at Barclays, continues to be, passionate about our story, where we're going. They always want to be there to help. And so anyway, for the listeners, find those relationships and build on them years over year over year. Yeah.
Yeah, it's well said. You owned a bank, so you would know this. But I often
Still do.
Yeah, well, you still do. Okay, that's a big part of our partnership. I feel like it's bringing banking back to what it originally was, which is to move from numbers on a spreadsheet back to relationships. Because at the end of the day, that's all it used to be. Was you would bank with relational trust, and to bring trust back into business, it's a high calling and it matters.
I'm not joking when I say this. The mantra at the bank I started was banking on relationships. That was that still is today.
Yeah.
I look at Barclays as an example of that, right? And that's really hard when you're a global bank, right?
Yeah.
To give people around you that aren't inside your bank that feeling that you're like almost like family, right? That's really, really hard when you're that big. And they do, I think, a really good job.
Well said. Okay, now I want to go back because you mentioned that you had some phenomenal mentors along the way, and that you never emulated just one person, but you would take components from them, on this journey that have kind of shaped your approach to sounds like leadership. Can you tell us a story, maybe one of the more pivotal moments with one of these mentors that illuminated something that you've taken forward?
Yeah, I haven't been asked that in a long, long time, but I honestly, I'm so blessed that I could tell you 10, but I'm just going to give you the one that jumped out in my head.
Yeah.
It actually was when I was at the hospital when I was in my early 20s, right? And the procedure that I was a part of is called an arteriogram. And all you need to know is it's when somebody has a heart attack, you take them into this, looks like a surgery room. You put a catheter in their groin, you inject dye into their heart, and you look to see where the blocked artery's at. Okay.
That's right.
What I went to training for is to sit in the monitoring room and monitor all the vitals and those sorts of things and talking to the cardiologist, and then or stand beside the cardiologist and assist with the procedure, all scrubbed in kind of a thing. Okay, so you have that picture.
Yeah.
So talk about the no asshole rule. There was a particular cardiologist. I won't name his name. I'm sure.
Sometimes they could be assholes.
Yeah. In the dictionary, he would be his picture. Okay.
Yeah, got it.
So I was in the monitoring room and he asked me a question and I gave him the answer and he goes off just unprofessionally, patient's line, just
ballistic,
just totally out of line. And by the way, I gave him the right answer.
Yeah.
So anyway, here comes the mentor story. I went to my boss and no one had ever dealt with this guy. Right. And I went to my boss and I said, I'm not going to work here anymore. You can't have an environment where somebody like that does that to any human being. It's just inappropriate. And I'll go talk to him if you want me to, but I'm done. Right. And he goes, you can't leave. You're this, that, and the other thing. And I said, well, you got to deal with it then, or I will. And it's not going to end well. And so I tell you this story because he went to him and said, don't ever do that again or I'll quit. Right? Don't ever do that to any of my employees ever again.
Yeah.
From that moment forward, he became a fraction of an asshole. Right? But the reason I tell you the story is back to your question. Is that was the first person beyond a coach, but in the business world that said, no matter if I'm at risk, I'm going to take care of the people that work for me.
Yeah.
Right. I still remember it today. 50 years later, or whatever. It's not 50, but 40 years later, right?
That's right.
And so you take that piece of, if I need to take something off of my employee's shoulder because it's just taking them down,
Yep.
you have to do it as a leader. Even if you're not the best person, go find somebody else in the organization that can help.
Totally right.
But if that person is somebody you want to be part of your journey for a while, don't let them die on the vine, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very well said. I feel like a big part, and that's a good example of what it means to be a leader is to have hard conversations.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would tell you that through growing ZincFive to where we are today, you're always raising money. You're always hoping you make payroll. You're always doing all these things, right? So you have to, as a leader, be transparent with your other leaders and your employees that,
Yeah.
hey, here's where we are. We got to get this money raised so we can do this
Yeah.
next, right? But until we do, we got to just, work twice as hard with less, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but you got to have that hard, transparent conversation. Transparency is the other thing I would give
Yes.
guidance on is if you don't have transparency, employees are going to always assume the worst, right? And if they start to assume the worst in a herd, you're screwed,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just be honest.
Yeah, just be honest. It is that simple. So it'd be easy, I think, for someone listening to this conversation. We already debunked the myth of a silver spoon,
Yeah.
which is great. But it's also now, ZincFive. How much capital have you raised to date?
We've raised, I think it's close to 300 million. Yeah.
You've raised close to $300 million. I think it'd be easy for someone listening to this to be like, oh well, Tim can do that. That's, for whatever reason, he's endowed with these gifts, whatever it might be.
Mhm.
And it's easy. We're at a stage now
Mhm.
where you say, oh, last year we doubled our revenue.
Yeah.
AI's come in. We're, on a path towards, really incredible growth.
Mhm.
It's easy to look at that and then kind of bypass the hard times in the story. And I'm curious because you just mentioned it. You said, yeah, there's times when we don't know if we're going to make payroll. Like how many times has it maybe gotten close to the edge? And what keeps you, or not even what keeps you going through it, but how do you weather those storms well?
Oh man, that's a hard question. That's a hard question. And the reason I say it's hard is because it's happened so many times,
So
right?
many times.
So many
Yeah.
times. Gosh, I'm trying to remember what year it was, but I remember, I had a full board and we thought some capital was coming in. We got close to payroll, and you never ever want to miss payroll. It's problematic on a whole set of levels, not the least of which is liability. And so I personally wrote a check for payroll.
Yeah.
And I was no longer at that point, 90% owner in ZincFive. I was, somewhere down in the teens.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to let it happen. So how do you weather that? Well, because I was the guy raising the money, I knew that I'd recover the funds, call the next 2 weeks, which happened.
Yep.
But you nearly miss payroll. You have a customer issue that you, at first glance, you say, "Oh shit, this could take us down," right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've had times, where I've had to tell my organization, hey, this problem seems huge, but everybody just take a breath. We're going to deal with this over the next hour.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, we're going to deal with it for the day. The next day, we're going to deal with it for the week. The next week, we're going to deal with it for the month. And if it stays, we'll deal with it for the year.
Yeah.
But if you allow people to sort of break it down into pieces like that, it's less overwhelming, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense.
And so, not to name names, there was once where, we were applying for our first debt facility a week away from accepting the funds. It was an $80 million debt facility that we could pull from. A week away from taking the funds, one of our small creditors who sits on our board says, "Hey, we want to be taken out." And it's like, where does that request come from? That's going to use the proceeds, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Totally.
So you go, wait a minute, are you going to sit there on my board and kill this deal, right?
Wow.
And you deal with that kind of stuff, right? So, like I say, there's your question is one where there's hundreds of examples.
Yes.
And I look at now not being the CEO and just helping my CEO, who was my previous COO for 10 years, previous CEO of Powergenics. I look at what he's going through, and I said this to my wife a couple of weeks ago. I said, "How did I ever do that?"
That was so hard.
Yeah, I mean, damn, damn. But it's like sports though. When you're in the trenches,
Yeah, you just did it.
you're
Yeah.
always looking at where you want to get to, right? And you don't really take the time to say, how are we dealing with all this? It just doesn't work that way. At least not for me.
Well said. Well said. Have you enjoyed the journey?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel like you're just having a
Yeah,
ball.
100%. Yeah. Have
So
I
that
enjoyed all the bad stuff that you got to deal with? Hell no. But do I enjoy seeing what we started with, where we've come from, where we are today, where we're going? And I always told Todd Higinbotham, our CEO now, who was my COO, I told him 2 years ago that when I give you the reins to this thing, I need to know we no longer need to raise money like the way we've raised it in the past.
Mhm.
And that's the stage we're at now. We're taking the company to the next journey, next chapter. And in doing so, Todd gets to become the guy that is the quarterback
Yeah.
that really runs the company. And I'll be there as his coach whenever he needs me.
Well said. So for you, for Tim, as you look forward, because you did transition out of CEO role, you're still co-founder and of course on the board.
Yes.
What are you looking forward to next?
I'm really looking forward to where we're going with the company, which your audience will hopefully be able to know more about in the next call month or so. We've built this company to be ready for that next chapter. We've done it for 10 plus years now,
That's right.
and it's here. And it's so freaking cool to have it
Yeah.
finally be here, and to, the market to hear everything that you're hearing today on our podcast about, where we play in the data center space, where we play in the AI space, having a chemistry that we own, that's unique. It's all the things that, if you ask me, the younger Tim, if I thought that this is where we would be, I would have said
Mm.
yes, but I would have thought it would have been sooner.
Yeah, of course.
That's the other maturity thing you learn. But we did it. I mean, we still have work to do, but we've got it well positioned, and that's what excites me. And to know that I'll be part of that future board, and helping Todd continue to create value in this company for our shareholders and employees
Yeah.
is really important to me. So that's what I'm excited about.
If you look forward 10 years from now and ZincFive, is truly realizing its full potential. One, what does that look like as a business? If you can talk about that, but the other side would be, what does that mean for the world?
Yeah. I'll start with the world piece first. For the world, it means that you're using a technology that's advancing technology
Mm-hmm.
in the form of AI. And again, there's good, bad, and ugly about AI, but there's a lot of things that, solving for cancer and just a bunch of things that to know that, we are an enabler for that to be happening is just, it just blows your mind, right?
Mm.
And I told my two young sons when they started, they're not young nowadays, but when they first started to work for ZincFive, by the way, they still work for ZincFive, not for me, of
Oh,
course.
no way.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything on the marketing side, you look at ZincFive, they're the architects behind that.
They're good at what they do.
Yeah,
Very
they
cool.
did all right. They did all right. But I remember telling them this story back when they were trying to decide if they wanted to maybe join the very young ZincFive and start to learn this business. As I
Mm.
listen, my vision one day when I walk away is when you have kids and you drive by a data center, you get to say, your granddad
Mm.
said he wanted to have ZincFive nickel-zinc batteries in data centers across the world. And he did it,
Mm.
right? We did it.
Mm.
Now, I didn't know back then to say, and I want to dominate artificial intelligence with their chemistry because AI didn't exist. But, you always have to have those sort of visionary dreams
Mm.
and try to make them come true.
Okay, you just dropped something that I wasn't aware of, which is I know the story now of growing up working next to your mom.
Yeah.
Those formative years. I did not know your sons work in ZincFive.
So is my wife.
What? Yeah, and your wife. Okay, what, Tim? This is insane. Perspective or advice would you have for anyone who wants to work with family?
Yeah. So I hate to keep coming back to sports, but because I coach,
Do it.
because I coach my sons, I had to operate the same way I do as a CEO, having them as employees, and that is, you don't treat them any better. In fact,
Of
you
course.
write them a little harder, frankly, right?
Yeah.
But the other thing you do is you get a coach between you and the
And
players for that specialty. So in the case of Jake and Nick, they worked when I was the CEO. They worked for one, two, three managers down, who's the director of marketing. She works for somebody else, and then he works for the COO. Right. So I would always refrain and abstain from anything performance related. They never have had performance issues, thank God. But any kind of raises, stock options, anything, they're treated like everybody else. Same way with my wife, right?
Yeah.
And if you do that, it's not hard. Now, what is hard is, in a fun way, I'm joking, is to stop talking about ZincFive at the holidays or anything.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah, because that's real. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, if you just do it that way, it works, right? And your whole organization respects it too, right? And I tell, when I've told them from day one, don't let the name on the back of the jersey think you've got an advantage over anybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's really what you do on a daily basis on your own that proves you need to be here.
That makes tons of sense. And I am curious, though, around the dinner table,
Yeah.
back at home, like, how do you? We have a number of fellows who work with their spouses.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they've co-founded the company with them. How do you protect the family time?
Well, I mean, lack of a better word, Chinese wall. So there's things, as the founder, as the CEO, that you just can't talk about with anybody except for, a small circle of people. And so you just have to have that discipline, number one. The day-to-day ZincFive stuff that everybody's aware of, you talk about that all day long, right? You just have to have a solid discipline of separation as a founder or CEO, if you're in that chair at the time, that if you do have family that is part of the company, is understand that you just can't let them know everything. Right.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And that takes discipline. But what about, trying to ensure that every conversation doesn't turn into a ZincFive conversation when you're with family?
Yeah.
Or does it?
No, it doesn't. We have so much to talk about that as a family. Is what our family's broad and deep, but there's always, I would say, enthusiasm about, they want to tell me what's going on in their worlds, right? And I get to parlay some of what I'm doing into what they're excited about and why it's connected. But I would say when we're all together, 10 or 15% of the time we talk about ZincFive, and then we move on to sports. Yeah,
That's a good ratio. Yeah. That's how anybody would talk about work, probably.
There's only been one time I've said to the whole family, "Hey, can we talk about something else?"
Yeah, let's not do this right now. That's pretty good. Tim, as we round out the conversation, one of my favorite questions, I imagine, want to become a part of the solution and a part of what it is that you're building. Like, how can people who are tuning in support? And this could be on at any level. You might be looking for customers, there might be financing, there might be, getting the word out there. Just would love to pass it to you there.
Yeah, hopefully what people that may have listened to this, and I appreciate anybody that did, but hopefully anybody that listens to this knows more about ZincFive now and knows what makes us special and where we shine, right? And if they're out there in the world and they're hearing of something in the data center space or AI space or another industry where short duration battery and high power is really something that's important, and safety and the environmental impacts on using the right chemistry for our planet, give us a shout. Even if it's just, hey, I was thinking about this after I heard your podcast. Could you guys do this? Right. we get those inquiries every day at ZincFive. So we welcome them. And I think when we first met, you asked me, where did the name ZincFive come from? I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember asking you. I don't remember the answer.
Well, and I think this is what I want the listeners to know is that, we have a lot of patents, as you know, in the audience.
Yes.
Things around zinc. So there's your zinc. But the 5 stands for, we believe we're the 5th battery chemistry to ever scale the planet. There's been lead acid, lithium, nickel metal hydride, nickel cadmium. We think we're the 5th. And that's where ZincFive comes from. And that's something when we founded that name, is our goal is to permeate the planet with nickel zinc technology, right?
Love it.
And we are doing it globally now. We've got huge customer demand, and what we're going to do for the world when it comes to AI is super exciting. So yeah, I'd probably leave it there.
Well said, Tim. Well, I want to say, having been on this journey with you for about 8 years, even since when we first met, I'm just a huge admirer of this rare mix. You have this confidence, this like drive to win, to ensure that your team wins. And it's matched with this like humility and this groundedness that I think is rare, especially in a lot of today's entrepreneurial world. So I just want to appreciate you for who you are, for what you're doing, but for how you're leading. To give me a glimpse of that, helps inform my journey going forward too. So thank you, Tim. It's a privilege to be on the journey with you.
Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that, Daniel.